Welcome, Carm Capriato, the Service Aftermarkets podcast pioneer with the gold standard of aftermarket business podcasts. Join me for Aftermarket Insights as we advance the aftermarket. And as always, know that you'll learn just one thing. Find us on your favorite podcast listening app and remarkableresults.biz or on my YouTube channel. Hey everybody, Carm Capriato, Remarkable Results Radio, the Town Hall Academy, our single subject forum where we toss up a topic, and today a great topic. We're going to talk about digital vehicle inspections, or as I love to call them, vehicle performance safety reviews. You think the customer may appreciate a vehicle performance safety review rather than the words DVI? I'm sure they have no clue what a DVI is. It's just like, well, we're in the medical field, so they'll have to accept that acronym. No. Hey, before we get started and I introduce my panel, let's give a great high five out to our sponsors. NAPA Tracks. They're going to move your shop into the SMS fast lane with on-site training and 6-day-a-week support and local representation. I've got a panel member that knows something about their training. Find NAPA Tracks on the web at napatracs.com. And are you ready to optimize training with today's class? Well, roll out a training plan for your automotive shop in just 5 minutes daily. Boost knowledge, retention, and improve your team's performance. Start seeing results today. Join your peers at todaysclass.com. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and thanks. Okay, everyone, meet my panel. Bottom left-hand corner of your screen, if you're watching on YouTube, is Charlie Pixley from Charlie's Car Care, Clearwater, Florida. Hey, Charlie.
Hello. How are you guys doing today?
Glad to have you here. Charlie's a first-timer on the show. It's always great to have a new voice for us. Chris Cloutier is here, co-owner of Golden Rule Auto Care in Dallas. Oh, Dallas. I said Houston. Why did I say Houston? I don't know.
Dallas. Texas. It's all the same. It's okay, Carm.
It's one big thing out there.
Texas.
And also Chris, not only being a shop owner like Charlie, he's the CEO of Autoflow. I'm sure you all know what Autoflow is. It's a DVI company, a CRM texting to your clients. Known Chris, tons of years.
Feels like, this is what, our second or third time to do this?
Yeah, it's only our second or third time. Oh my God, go to my website, remarkableresults.biz, type in Chris Cloutier, just like you see it on the screen, and check them out because we've been doing some geek stuff together. It was always so much fun. And Ben Dexter is here, who is also not a new voice, who's been on before, the National Training Manager for NAPA Tracks.
Hello.
Wow. Good to have you here, Ben. Appreciate this. I think you three are perfect for me to say, here's what I'm looking. I went to a conference and there were these breakout sessions and I went from group to group and I'm hearing shop owners talk about the struggle that they had for implementing digital vehicle inspections inside their business. And I'm looking around the room and, Carm can occasionally have an interesting attitude. And one of the things I said, who owns the shop? No one had a comeback, although they put a pin in the Carm doll. Okay. And I'm looking in this episode to tell stories of how shops make this happen inside their business. Could it be culture? I know Chris has an opinion about that, but just because an owner wants DVI inside his organization doesn't mean his people are going to react and make it work. How do they sell it to the specialists in the bays? With all that in mind, Chris, I really want to jump into this whole culture thing. Is it culture that really makes it happen, Chris?
Yeah, let me piss off your audience right from the get-go. That's great, Carm. Culture. I have great culture. I have great people. This is what I hear. I have great everything. They're great, but I can't get them to implement process. I told you this, as shop owners and business owners, we wrap ourselves in this warm blanket called culture as a defense mechanism. And anytime you bring up that you're not doing well, you say, but I have a really good culture and I have really good people. It doesn't matter about your people. It does. Hold on. So your people do matter, but it matters about the leadership and what you force and what you measure and what you expect from your people. So you can have a great culture and your people can still not follow what you want because you as a leader, unfortunately, are weak and you're not pushing for the things that you want and the change that you want to implement in your shop. So culture, we have to be careful. And you talk about it often. And once again, I hear it often. Culture. I have a great culture. Great. But if you can't get your people to do the work, then you have a problem with your leadership, accountability, and getting change implemented in your shop.
Well, that's a great point. Charlie, got any problems in that area?
Yes and no. When I started DVI, it was back in 2012. So I've been doing it for a long time. We went from paper inspections to digital vehicle inspections. I kind of told my guys that, listen, when it's time to inspect a vehicle, instead of grabbing the clipboard with the piece of paper, grab your phone out of your pocket. They all carry them. It's not like it's anything crazy. And I've customized the inspections to be to the point of the vehicle's concern, with small things that, if you see something, obviously say something. And my guys kind of took to it like duck to water. I mean, I really didn't have much pushback. Some of the older guys pushed back more than the younger guys because the technology, but once I proved to them that the DVI works and it's increasing their average repair order, listen, they're making more money, I'm making more money, and the customer's getting a more transparent view of their vehicle.
Amazing stuff. When you hear it from the horse's mouth, no negativity involved here, you sit and you scratch your head and you say, how can Charlie do it? How can Chris do it? And maybe one of the reasons that Charlie can do it, he's a NAPA Gold certified, which means you're a top tier shop operator. You've been doing this for 12 years, 13 years. Yep. 13 years. Chris, when was DVI invented?
It's been around for probably 15, 16. There's people who are doing it on spreadsheets, like when computers existed. So it's not like, I think the technology's come along better than some of the older technologies were out there, but this isn't. And it's interesting because a lot of people are still like, wow, we're experiencing this and for the first time. But yeah, there's a lot of really cool tech out there. It's been around for a while. Tech's been long. But I'm going to tell you this, like to Charlie's point, and I'm sure Ben's going to tell us this. As a trainer, there's shops you go in and absolutely they duck to water. Not a problem. It's when you come up against that resistance. And once again, you could still have a good culture. You can still have good people. But you as an owner, right, you have to sometimes put your foot down and say, this is the way it's going to be. I love the whole idea of allowing everybody to adopt a process in the shop. But the owner has to say, yeah, but the process is going to happen. It's not an option of whether we do it or not. It's we're doing it. But yeah, y'all can have some say in how we implement and why we implement it and the way we're going to implement it. But the whole idea of it being an option, like Charlie said, no, this is what we're doing. And this is the way we're going to go ahead. So change sucks. We do a lot on change and it's a hard thing, right? So it's great when it does stick, but anytime you're going to put change in your people's court, it's going to be an uphill battle the majority of the time.
Ben, you're probably hearing all of this stuff. You've probably preached this in your weekly class. Don't you do a weekly class for NAPA Tracks?
Yeah, every single day, Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And it's based on experience. I've been in the automotive aftermarket for 30 years. I was a Trax customer for 15. So I understand Chris and Charlie's position of, I'm a dinosaur. I remember when we just had a verbal understanding with the technicians that they would jot their notes down on a piece of paper we printed and put in a pouch. And then the day we started to ask them to get a 17-digit VIN number, it was like we were pulling teeth. So change is a 4-letter word, but moving to a 27-point cursory inspection, which was just a basic second sheet of paper that was printed, and requiring that to be filled out legibly, was a bit of an undertaking. But I talked to a lot of owners that deal with the challenges that I've since resolved. And really it boils down to a simple statement. What you allow, you encourage. So if we're going to let the tail wag the dog, then we're going to have a problem. And it doesn't have to be, the beatings will continue until morale improves. It's a team effort. And with the culture, feedback is king. If somebody feels like they're not heard or they can't voice their opinion, then they're not going to have anything to say. And then that's when the dirty, underhanded undermining goes on when we change, because to me, change is a 4-letter word. I've seen it in countless examples where an old dog and new tricks, they don't want to accept the reality of we're moving this direction. You're either on this bus or you're getting off this bus. And we've had to make some changes. As a operator in the shop, we had to set a few examples, that required some terminations, let them move to another facility that they may have a better fit with. But the DVI advancement in the last decade has been phenomenal. I don't know a business owner that's KPI driven and, progressive in nature that isn't taking advantage of some form of DVI.
There are some improvements of KPIs if you are doing DVIs. Oh my God, that was a rhyme. I didn't mean to do that. My good friend Hunt Demarest, great accountant, Parmelis accounting firm, has a podcast on the Aftermarket Radio Network, sends out a report every year. He surveys his clients. He's got a ton of them, and he rates them top tier, bottom tier. And one of the things that I saw in his report was that I think it was like 70% of his clients are doing vehicle performance safety reviews, or DVIs. And when I think about someone who is a shop owner that's got, a top tier CPA working for them, I would only imagine that they're smart enough to know that if they're going to be top tier, they'll probably even have a coach, they're going to be doing this. And so possibly who we're talking to, the audience that we're talking to, is the next level, who is in struggle mode, who has let, if you will. They have a flat earth. How about this for an analogy? They have a flat earth and DVI's falling off the edges. and so go get a rope and tie it onto that ship that's sailing away and get a pulley system and pull them in. How's that for a mental picture for you?
Absolutely. To your point of KPI and things like that, I studied DVIs when it first came out, was kind of skeptical, of course. So I wanted to do my homework on it. And then once I jumped on board, I really watched it over I would say a 2-year solid period, maybe even 3 now. It's going back, so you have to excuse my memory. But it boils down to there was a direct correlation with the inspection to the average RO that we got, in the sense of if the technician literally, took the exterior 4 pictures that we require and wrote on there, has a bad alternator, and sent that in, that average RO was less than if they were to actually check the air filter and take a picture of it, and check the belt and take a picture of it, and check the tires and take a picture of it. So we saw a increase of almost $300 to $400 average RO from a 4-picture inspection to a 8 to 12 picture inspection. And then there was probably another $300 gap if you went above that 12 pictures to say 14, 15, 16 pictures on an inspection. We would see almost another $300 increase in average RO with those inspections. And I tell my guys, I like a minimum of 12 pictures. And they don't need to be bad. I mean, this is, take the air filter out and take a picture of it. If it's clean or dirty, it's okay. At least the customer has transparency now to say, hey, they checked that. They know that we're doing a quality inspection of their vehicle, not just showing them everything bad.
I love his point, guys, and I always take our industry down to the medical, always. So I'm walking into the doctor, my annual physical, he takes out my blood work and he goes, great news on your cholesterol. You're knocking it, baby. And that's the good picture, Charlie. That's the good picture.
Carm, battling priorities. That's what shop owners face every day. We have a mound of things that we're dealing with, often whether it's HR, which is a huge thing. We've had multiple conversations on HR. This goes back to culture and people. Just getting your people to show up and do their job is sometimes just really hard. And then when you add this other thing on top of it, we know the benefits of it. We know the transparency. We know the ROI. But this battling priority says, hey, I have to deal with all the other things that I have to get done. And this thing doesn't become as important. And then what happens, Carm, is the industry says, hey, we've adopted this thing. 5 years ago, 3 years ago, there's been a major adoption of this thing called safety check, DVI, whatever you want to call it. And now what you're seeing, and unfortunately, when you're in this conversation, is a lot of owners checking a box. They buy the product, they get the tool, and then it sits on the shelf. And what happens is when they go into a room with their other peers, they go, oh yeah, we're doing DVI. Even though they know in the back of their mind, only 30 cars or 30% of the cars, or only one guy's doing it, and he's kind of half-assed doing it. and they sure as hell ain't getting 12 pictures. They might get one, right? But they check boxes, right? Because they want to feel like they're not behind. And I think this industry probably needs, it's the vulnerability piece that we need to be vulnerable with each other and say, you know what, I suck at this thing. Can you help me?
Yeah.
Can you come in and show me how to just start with one thing? And you always say this, Carm, learn one thing and then grow from there. I guarantee Charlie's checklist 12 years ago, Charlie, when you started, looks nothing like his checklist right now.
100% change.
It's changed. It's morphed. It's grown. All these people have adopted it. They've changed it, right? But we have to start with that one thing and stop just checking a box and saying, yeah, I'm good.
New technology, new tolerances, new safety. Charlie, I would imagine that you're constantly thinking how to improve your DVI process.
100%. And part of the adoption process that I feel that worked for me was I said, listen, we're going to go to this. I have built one inspection. And then over time, I think I'm up to like 12 different inspections now based upon the vehicle's needs. And I also involved my guys with this. So in the sense of, guys, if you're constantly seeing a description that you're having to type in, which slows you down, let me know and I can put it as a quick add. So that way you're not sitting there beating on a keyboard. You can just select and go on. My normal inspection, so basically the inspection that every vehicle that comes through my door gets, it literally takes 7 minutes to do the entire inspection with 12 pictures. So I've tried to streamline it the best I possibly could so that the guys don't feel like they're wasting their time. And I also had to show them that if they do this inspection, that the amount of work that they will find that needs to be done on a vehicle totally outweighs that 7 minutes of them doing that inspection.
My God, Ben, what do you see as the average time? 7 seems a little light to me.
Well, 7, being that it's just over a tenth of an hour, we're not talking about a whole lot of time. But what Charlie's leveraging there is the evolution of the inspection. The software, like the shortcuts for the labels, the way that the pictures are done. His technicians, I would assume most DVIs that have perfected it, they have a process that goes with the application. The reality of, when we pull the vehicle in, when do the pictures get taken? When we rack the vehicle, when do the pictures get taken? Because when I think about DVI and I think about the implementation of it with a service writer or a technician, because change, 4-letter word, nobody wants to deal with change. But in a show, tell, sell environment, the show and tell is done by the DVI. And this is an industry that is largely plagued by the invisible. I remember years ago, I had a company process. It was a rule of engagement that if a technician found a vehicle backed into a single parking space, when they're done with that vehicle, if they back it into the exact same parking space, they were gone. They were in trouble because a customer's going to ask me, Ben, did you even work on my car? What we do is largely invisible. So Charlie's example of 12 pictures, whether it's good and bad, is 100% the accurate way to go. It's the best practice. The customer gets a sense of positive feeling about their vehicle, not thinking that every time they come in, all Ben does is talk about the negative. I get to relate the value that still remains in the car. Therefore, the buying decision that happens to invest in that vehicle becomes a little more clear for the customer. But the way that the images are taken and the way that we send it to the customer is critical. Not all DVIs are created equal. Some of them are very basic in nature and, they mirror, entry level kind of functionality. And then you see some that, I would liken to the cockpit of the space shuttle. They have all of the features and benefits. So if a customer or if a shop is thinking about DVI, we got to walk before we run. Like you said, we got to fix this one thing and then work from there. It may not be the best example to jump into a DVI that's feature rich. And as Chris eloquently put it, they buy it and they shelve it. I've walked into shops that have had a DVI installed and then paid thousands for implementation, literally thousands, and pay a monthly fee, a significant amount of money. And I ask them, hey, how's this working out? They're like, well, we're not using it. That is mind-boggling to me. How can we pay for something and have that much of a bottom line impact and not actually use it to grow? That's a wake-up moment. You got to try to get somebody's attention.
Hey, let's face it. Your shop management system is the single most important tool in your shop, period. NAPA Trax has made selecting the right shop management system easy by offering the industry's best, most comprehensive SMS. Now, it all starts when a local representative meets with you to learn about your business and how you need to run it. After all, it's your shop, so it's your choice, and having local representation is a huge plus. Customizing Trax to your business, whether you're a one-person shop or a large multi-bay or multi-location company, a representative consults with you to help optimize your shop's workflow, efficiency, and profitability. Trax always has the flexibility to do business how you need to do it, which means it can also grow as your business grows. And unlike the other guys, we'll be there for you after installation with the best training and support in the business. Yes, a learning management system tailored to each role in your company. Simply put, Trax was designed and built for shop owners just like you. Visit us on the web at NAPATRACS, that's NAPATRACS.com. Transform your team with today's class, where automotive training is easy, quick, and fun. Just 5 minutes a day on our app can eliminate hours of looking up forgotten information later. It's perfect for technicians, advisors, and managers alike. Keep critical knowledge fresh and top of mind, ensuring your team operates at peak efficiency. Today's class is impactful, accessible from anywhere, and a bit of fun too, and we're not talking about after-hours pizza either. For training that gets results, turn to todaysclass.com.
So I'm an analytical geek. I'm a musician too. That's why I look like I'm in my studio. I analyze data, 12 pictures, 5 pictures, 3 pictures, all good. Depending on, here's one thing that we've really dialed in on is what is the consumer consuming, right? Are you paying attention to what they're looking at? Because you can take 12 pictures, and if you're not looking at the consumer and making sure that they're consuming the 12 pictures, then it's like if a tree falls in the wood, does it make a sound? Well, who cares if you're not telling people about the tree and you don't make them care about the tree? So I think educating your people at the front counter to know that, hey, if you send somebody a link, make sure they understand that link is going to contain things, and it's going to contain good pictures and bad pictures. And if you have a good DVI, it shows you what pictures they've looked at and what pictures they haven't looked at, and your person trains them up front. Now I'm going to tell you one more thing on the technology side, Carm. There's technology out there that's even going to make it better. Like we're working with the language models, AI, all that stuff, to where I have technicians that for the last 8-10 years, I have just beat up because battery bad. And, you know, these are guys who aren't language experts. They never will be. But here Chris has, who, by the way, I could spell and read and write at a 7th grade level. And my teachers told me, Chris, you do not have a future because you basically will not be able to get past college. And luckily computers came out. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go do this computer thing. But I've been beating him up for 10, 12 years. One in particular, I'm not going to say his name. And like, you've got to do better descriptions. Battery bad is not good. And hoses don't sip. They seep, right? And we're about to launch technology that allows you to press a little button. And then guess what? It rewrites and gives this grade 2 sentence, makes this guy look like a professor now, right? So I'm going to solve the problem of bad technicians and bad writing with what's out there right now in AI. So the tech is getting even better than it's been before. Like Ben pointed out, and Charlie's seen too, he's been around, like, oh my God, between all the things you can do, text to speech, pictures, like, man, the time to get it done is not the issue anymore.
100% agree with that comment. And I will say, to your point of, you know, making sure you take the pictures that the customer brought the vehicle in for is a huge thing. And I will say, I have had many DVI companies over the years. Obviously, I've not stuck with one this entire time. And to Autoflow's horn here, they're making the technician acknowledge the customer's complaint and then being able to take that complaint and then link it to a specific section of the DVI is game changing, in my opinion, because that was one of the hurdles that we couldn't get over, that they weren't nailing down the specific that the customer was chasing first. And then, hey, in the future, you're going to need this, that, and everything else. But with Autoflow's technology that they've got going on, we've been very happy with that, and it's been working great for our specific situation.
I didn't
Ben
ask for the
is-
plug. That was a plug, Carm. That was not asked. It was not.
No, I know that. Chris, you need to send Charlie a $50 gift card for the Outback.
Card's in the mail. It's in the mail.
You guys are talking, and Ben's sitting over there in the background. And he's got this big smile. If you're watching on YouTube, and he's shaking his head crazy. And all I could think about between both of you is in this AI thing, Chris, and my big push of this language shift in the industry to a much more professional level, getting bad battery to say something much more eloquent. It's about the customer. And if that makes concierge service or the level of professionalism and the experience that you have at the shop, you gotta click that button. You gotta make that happen. Right, Ben?
Absolutely. I can remember dozens of examples of some of the most inappropriate, inaccurate, horrible representation of our organization printed on an invoice. We didn't make a mistake. We printed that. Somebody wrote it down, but then somebody copied that, and the owner would come to me and say, Ben, did we really put that in writing? And I said, I think we did. I'm not an English major either. We tried to dumb it down. Battery bad is better than battery looks like garbage. Battery, is about to, blow up in the car. Like, some of the things that we relate, it's tough. The language barrier is real, and we shouldn't expect a technician, I think, to be an English major. A service writer should clearly be able to articulate what the needs of the vehicle are. But I think in my experience personally, as a Trax operator and all the experience I've gained in the industry, I watch shop owners, they make that mistake one time out of 1,000, and then confirmation bias kicks in and they say, it's not worth it. It's going to happen. If it ever happens to me again, then I'm never going to do that. And I'm going to stop progressing. And, I used to sit the owners that I'd worked down with and say, look, about this one person who's complaining about a certain situation. And they acknowledge that. And nobody likes to have dread. Nobody likes to have an embarrassing situation. But if I froze you in a phone booth and then woke you up a year later and said you had an extra $2 million, what would you tolerate for the $2 million? It changed their perspective completely. We have to bump our knee from time to time. The good news is not all of us have to learn by example. We can learn from others. So if we are participating in a BDG, or we're a member of a group, or we go to conferences, we network with our peers and we find out what works. I think these two examples, Charlie and Chris, would be phenomenal people to ask, hey, it's not just a DVI. What have you learned? I think there's a lot of hesitation with shop owners that they're scared, they're feeble when it comes to doing something new because of the dreaded, I knew this was going to happen situation. But when it comes to making money, which I don't think any of us should be ashamed of or lose focus, this is why we do this. We want to be profitable. And I think the reality of, like Charlie had mentioned, the increase in sales dollars that are associated with a solid DVI process, it more than pays for itself, 100%.
That was a big takeaway from about 15 minutes ago, Charlie, about where your growth in average repair order is. You also mentioned, Ben, if you're with a peer group, we're going to talk about some financials from people. During the breaks in periods of time, don't be bashful to ask a peer, someone to the left, someone to the right, someone at the lunch table, anything new with you on DVI? And just sit back, sit on your hands. You need a pen to write this stuff down with, and pull the ideas, the number of pictures using AI, face of the customer, face of the client videos. And then one thing that just happened last week, talking to a friend, he had to take his vehicle back to a dealer for whatever kind of warranty thing was. Well, they did a digital vehicle inspection on the vehicle and sent it back to him. No, when the service advisor called and he says, hey, blankety blank, did you get it? And he goes, yeah, I got it. And he says, what the hell are you doing? And he said, what do you mean? He says, the person their picture was in the frame. It was like a selfie. He looked homeless. Was I supposed to believe him? Does this guy have any credibility? And he was all about, if you're going to put an employee, a specialist in a picture, please, some dignity. Make them look like a Navy SEAL or something.
There's an art. And, Carm, for a while there, the industry tried to shift to video only inspections. And I shuddered when I saw this shift, because 3 minutes of a guy in front of a camera who has no business being in front of a camera with air guns going off in the background. I mean, sound's one of the most important things to video that there is. If you study video, sound, like this is why you want good mics. So yeah, we put ourselves in precarious situations because we think, without actually knowing, oh, there's an art to video, there's an art to actually pictures, there's an art, because we're an Instagram world, you can put anything, everything, and everybody will be fine with it. But that's great. Yeah. So now we've create small little pieces of video. You can string them together, right, the way that the world really works, and then give them to them bite-sized pieces. But I saw it a lot. I saw the technicians in front of and I shuddered too, Carm, because it was just bad.
Carm, I'll say one thing here about, these videos and pictures and things like that, and getting your shop to buy in. It's not only the technicians that have to buy in, it's the service writers too. Because, the editing of the videos, or the making sure that the explanation is not too technical, but technical enough. There is some editing in a DVI that the service writer or owner is going to have to do before it gets sent out to the customer. It's getting them to buy in too. But I will say this, all of my service writers that I've had and past to current all say that it makes my job easier in the long run because the customer sees it in black and white. The transparency is there that we did work on the car. It did move out of the parking spot. We are doing what the customer asked us to do. And by the way, you need this, this, and this, or we found this safety issue that you weren't even aware of. And here's the pictures of it to prove it. Along with it also protects the shop too, in my opinion, that taking pictures of the exterior of the car before it leaves the parking spot that the customer left it in, taking a picture of the dash to say, hey, that check engine light was on before we worked on it. You didn't want to fix it, but it was on before we touched it. So it's not only just to help the customer and help the sales. I feel it's a CYA for the shop.
Absolutely. Talk about implementation, Ben. I know this is a big topic for you. One of the things that I'm worried about is, okay, I got it signed up, got Autoflow. I'll tell my shop manager or my service advisor or my lead specialist in the back to do this. You can delegate, but you can't abdicate, because if you really want this thing to work, you have to own it from top down. Am I right?
Absolutely. And leadership, it is all too often overlooked with excuses for who's not doing what and why are they not doing it, rather than taking that self-appraisal and say, hey, I'm the owner. I'm not doing a good job at this. Chris brought this up in the beginning. You have to own it. And the reality of implementation is, and I think as Charlie put it, it makes the service writer's job easier. It's all about efficiency. It's efficiency for the technician and the service writer. And that relationship, now I might be wrong here, but I think we could all maybe agree that in the industry, the service counter and the shop, the technician and the service writer, sometimes those are bad relationships. Sometimes they're challenging relationships. There's some tension there. A DVI is not meant to do anything to increase the tension, but decrease the tension. The accountability. The service writer got the information from the technician. They relate it to the customer. The technician got the information from the service writer to identify fixing what that customer came in for first. That's the priority. The process is generally in place. Now, when we go to add a new piece of equipment, a tablet, we ask a service writer to open a new window and to type additional information in there. Those investments in a little bit of time, and it takes probably about 2 weeks I've seen in the field before a shop becomes a bit more level set on the situation. But if I'm a shop owner and I introduce a new DVI, regardless of the provider, regardless of the equipment, and I am not personally involved in those first 2 weeks on the daily, all day long, then I'm doing myself a disservice. If I invest a little bit of time in the beginning, it now helps with the deployment. And now I don't have to spend as much time babysitting the folks because I've identified any conflicts immediately as they come up. It might be a device not behaving correctly. A service writer might be frustrated to death because they're still working on a single monitor. How about a dual monitor? All computer motherboards these days have triple monitor opportunities. Buy another monitor from Staples if that helps the service writer help the process. So as an owner, I don't think it's a set it and forget it. I don't think you're going to buy something and push an easy button. There's a little bit of skin in the game right off the gate.
I heard something in there about flowing, and I thought of you, Chris, right away. It's got to flow. Anyway, 300% rule, guys. We hear about that a lot. A ton from some shop owners have adopted that. They've made it their rules. Some coaches speak highly of that. Can we talk about that? Do you implement, Charlie, 300% rule? 100 get done, 100 get quoted, 100 get presented?
Yes, I don't necessarily call it the 300 rule, but it's myself and a service writer at my shop. Everything has to be given to the customer in the DVI, a quote. Do you want to schedule this? We try to give as much information to the customer as we possibly can with the explanation of, listen, this isn't an emergency. This is not going to leave you on the side of the road. This is not going to break you down. But to maintain your car to its optimum, we need to do this, that, and everything else. I think that I do have a 300 rule theoretically, that everything goes on the DVI, everything gets estimated, everything gets presented to the customer, and then it's up to the customer of how they want to maintain their car. It's their vehicle.
I, to some degree, follow it. Cecil Bullard, long time back, saw him give a presentation. I forget what he calls it, but I do have an audit. I call it the birth to death audit. And that makes sure that every ticket I look at, what was the reason why the vehicle was addressed? Was it addressed? Were there maintenance items on there? Were there the safety items on there? Or there, so, and then was it sent to the customer? Was it all written up? Was there an invoice with that? So it's a good practice. There is like a change now in the industry with Todd Hayes. I'm going to throw out a couple of people. Todd Hayes is now saying, hey, let's change the way we present it. But I still think it's the 300%. I think it's just, hey, we're presenting a little bit first and then we're presenting the rest later. I think as an industry, a lot of us still have adopted that process. But I want to go back to Carm to the adoption of it. We started talking about this earlier, and I want to throw out the book, Change or Die. Love the book. Think it's great. It's one of the best ones on creating habits and changing your habits. And really, it's 3 R's. Relate, repeat, reframe. And Ben started bringing this up earlier on. He's like, look, you go to conferences, you hang out with your groups, and this is where you really start relating with the other people that are doing this thing or doing this process. And I think there's a lot of power in a relationship. If you want to go to the gym and be a fit person, go hang out with fit people that go to the gym. Want to be a good soccer player, go play with good soccer players. It just makes sense. Go find shop owners, be vulnerable. Like you said, Carm, sit and ask them, hey, what do you do that gets you the results that you need to get when you're doing a DVI? Because I think once we do something, we're like, we can't really improve it. We're already masters at it. Well, that's crap. We can always improve things. We can always be better at things. Sam Walton was great at constantly asking people, how do you do that? Show me. Even though Sam Walton was like a genius, but he constantly asked people how to make things better or how they made things better and took the best. And then the repeat it over and over again, and then reframe it, right? Once you get it to where everybody's using this thing and they're all, whether it's 10 points, we started with 10 inspection items, our first inspection, 10. And that grew from 10 to over 100 within a couple of years right now, because people are like, oh, this is missing. Oh, we need it to do this. Oh, we need it to do this. Oh, we need it to do this, right? Because once they start getting down that path of using and the habit's been creating, then the reframing happens naturally, right? I go to the gym all the time. Like you get bored with the same exercise. So you start saying, hey, I see that guy doing that. I'm going to ask him about that exercise because I like the way he looks or I like the way she looks. So I want to ask about that exercise. So Change or Die, huge, great book. I think that everybody should read it who's a business owner because, Ben, change is a 4-letter word. And man, it is a nasty word that catches us all. And it plagues us all as business owners. I wrote this, Carm, being a good leader is hard to get people to do what you want to do. And it never stops, right? Unless you're like, man, I'm selling the business and you don't care. But if you want to be a great business, it's nonstop. You're going to constantly be changing and pushing your people. And that's a hard thing to do.
Well, but some great points, Chris. God, this was great. I want to try to sum this up a little bit, give each of you a chance to maybe speak to our struggling shop owners that believe the earth is flat, to reference what I said earlier. In fact, I think I need to write a blog on that. All of a sudden, boom, it just happened. And I did not have a cocktail yet today. Geez, what's going on? I'm always so into my guests and all the great stuff that they bring to us. Charlie, thank you so much for showing us the average repair order success that you've had, that you've done this for 12 years and you're constantly reinventing. To hear from you, Chris, that in your own software that you own, Autoflow, that you're building some really cool, neat AI things. And when I think about bad battery, I remember interviewing Jim Sennett from AAA a while back, was maybe 6 months ago. I can't remember if he mentioned to me or I asked him, how many battery calls do AAA trucks do a year on the side of the road? And it was 7 figures, guys. 7 figures. So I kind of got a little soapy, after I heard that number from him saying, why would we not? Why would we take a 4-year-old vehicle and do an inspection on it? And well, it'll be good for 6 months and we forget about it. We don't even tell our client about it. And we risk a weather change, things happening that we wouldn't even go out and say, and oh, by the way, AAA says that it's their highest road service problem. I do not want you ever to have to be inconvenienced by hell, that needs to be in your AI stuff, Chris. You got to figure out how to put that in there, okay? It's not selling. It's not upselling. It's not anything, but just showing our customers that we care to the degree, and we've been around the horn a little bit. It's like a doctor. Oh my God, the doctor, I went to the cardiologist, right? I had a heart problem a whole bunch of years ago. I sat across from my general practitioner and he goes, I had the same thing. We were like kindred spirits. I don't want this to happen to you. Here's what you have to do. Why aren't we empathizing to the point with our clients and letting them see it's not about selling, it's about protecting, it's about safety, it's about convenience, that's why you bring your car here. And I'm done with my soapbox. Okay, let's do Charlie, Ben, and Chris. Charlie, so glad to have you here from Charlie Pixley from Charlie's Car Care, Clearwater, Florida. Charlie, any final words?
As far as implementing a DVI in my shop, and I've talked to several other business owners about it, it's one of those things you just got to do. It's the way the world turns nowadays. Everybody wants to have a text. Everybody wants to have an email. And this is a prime example to be able to get it to them. The DVI world works, and you just have to do it.
The way the world works sounds like an automotive soap opera, doesn't it? Oh my God.
As the wheel turns.
Thank you, Charlie. The wheel turns. Good
That's
stuff.
good.
Ben, final words. Ben Dexter, oh, by the way, National Training Manager at NAPA Tracks.
I think the average shop owner that I talk to, it's the clear message is you have nothing to lose. You have everything to gain. Even if you try it, you're going to see an improvement. But there's a direct proportion to the shops out there that are struggling with a $250 average RO compared to the shops that are looking at $1,000 plus average RO. Now, depending on what part of the country is, those numbers are a little bit different. But the shops that are utilizing the DVIs, and I've communicated with hundreds and thousands of shops across the country in the last decade plus with NAPA Tracks, and I see it over and over again. So if you're a shop owner and your average RO struggles, and we want to improve that, DVI is 100% a best practice to advise to you.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we didn't even uncover here, Chris, was the whole KPI management. Listen, I know that there's a new order of doing business here starting now. I mean, these last 3 or 4 years behind us, they're gone. And there's going to be a new way to worry about these key critical measurements that make us money, that keep us alive. And I can't help but think that if you're not utilizing a digital vehicle inspection, then even if you are, Charlie, that it is a tactic in your whole go forward strategy for 2025. It just has to be constantly improving that. Great stuff. Thank you so much. Chris Cloutier, owner of Golden Rule Auto Care, co-owner with his brother of Golden Rule Auto Care in Dallas, and the CEO of Autoflow. Chris, your final word.
I'll say start simple. Like I said before, start simple and then improve over time. And a good example of this, Carm, is when we first started doing digital inspections, we started out with 10 items and then grew to over 100. Recently, within the last couple of years, we started worrying about sins, making sure that we're sending the digital inspection to the customer, making sure that the customer opens it, making sure they view things. Well, we used to have a benchmark KPI around 30%. And Craig, who also has a radio show with you, Speak Up, wonderful show. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. He said, Chris, wow, here you are, owner of Autoflow, and that's pretty ridiculous, 30%. And I said, yeah, I'm the plumber. I don't fix my own stuff. I just worry about other people's stuff. But he said, Chris, you got to fix this. You should do a case study on it. And I'm like, I'm going to do this. So it took me over several years to get my sends from over 30% now to consistently over 80% to 90%. And that was constant, Carm. It was a constant correction. It was a constant, okay, this is the new goal. We're going to do 40%. Can we do 40%? Everybody says, yeah, we can do 40%. And then the first week, we do 30%. I said, why can't we do 40%? And then everybody gives their excuses. And I said, okay, well, no more excuses. Let's do 40%. And then, like Ben says, you go to the counter and you send some yourself. And like, why isn't this one sent? And why isn't this one sent? And why isn't this one sent? We can send more. And then it goes to 40% and then 50%. And then everybody goes, well, we cannot get to 60%. There's no way. And you're like, well, you couldn't get to 30 and 40%, right? You couldn't get to 50%. So it's constant correction and then praise. Great job when we do get there. I think Ben that said that as well. Like, you can't just beat them. When they do hit the benchmark, you go, great. Now let's make it even bigger. Let's make it huge, but just start with one thing and start with that. If you have a digital inspection, do 5 items, do 10 items, do 12 items, and just make sure it's done on every car. Maybe you only have 2 pictures that you require at the beginning, because eventually you can get to Charlie's where you're doing 12, where you're doing 15, where you're doing 20, but start somewhere. And I think that's my point I want to make, is start somewhere, start slowly, and then incrementally make the change. And before you know it, 5 years later, you're an expert on digital inspections.
Thank you for that, Chris. It's a new KPI, DVI sends.
It is.
There it is.
It is.
There
There's
it is.
lots of new ones, Carm, but that is definitely one of them. Absolutely.
I'm going to call the KPI god of our industry and remind him or her of that. Thank you all so much. This whole episode on DVI, timely, perfect beginning of the year. Thanks, Charlie, Chris, Ben. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Carm.
Thank you.
Thanks.